Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to our agenda, approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Veracco.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. We have a revised agenda before you with two revisions. First, under Roman numeral 7C1, Mrs. Schoen has an additional professional leave request. And 7F, Mr. Ledger's update on optimization will come at our next board meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Malkow. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, motion passes. Is there any correspondence, Mr. Marshall?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move right into our liaison committees. Dr.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I think I'm the first one on
All right,
there.
Mr. Marshall, go right ahead.
No problem. As far as the Personnel Interview Committee, we have scheduled interviews for sometime around mid-March, correct? I forgot the exact date for...
The week of March 8th.
Sorry?
The week of March 8th.
Okay, the week of March 8th. That is for the Director of Elementary Ed, since we have a upcoming retirement. I don't even want to talk about that, right, Sarah? Okay, but that's all that's made aware at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Medlin, do you have anything from your committees?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Dr. Malcolm?
Well, Education Foundation Committee, we did have a meeting, and we're looking to sell Fannie Mae candy around Easter time, but I don't have a date for you on that. And legislative, I'm going to defer that to Dr. Veracco, but I do want people to know there will be a meeting Friday at 11 o'clock with our legislators, and I believe it's open to anyone that would like to attend and ask questions and learn more.
And on your Education Foundation, the Cherryville Chamber contacted me and asked if I would send out information. I believe you guys are doing a La Quesadilla tomorrow.
Yes,
So,
La Quesadilla, yeah.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
dine in or carry out, so make
Okay.
sure you let them know.
And that's tomorrow night,
Tomorrow, all day.
all day.
Lunch, dinner.
Thank you. Okay.
And then I have for Dollars for Scholars, the scholarships will be closing on February 28th for any current senior at the high school. And if they have any questions, they should see Mr. Freeman. So with that, we'll move to our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Veracco.
Thank you again, Mrs. Suze. So at this time, we'd seek board approval for the minutes from our special board meeting on January 19th, our executive session on January 19th, and our regular board meeting minutes from January 19th. Also seeking board approval for claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures that you received in your packets last week.
Move to approve?
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Seconded?
second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes. Are there any public comments? No. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to our official school board business topic, regular agenda. Dr. Veracco. You're up. You're up.
All right, my first item is to have the board take action on the resolution that was presented by the Indiana School Board Association and is to be adopted by our Lake Central School Board of Trustees this evening, condemning the establishment of education savings accounts in the upcoming legislative session.
I would like to move that we accept that recommendation from you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would like to second Dr. Malkow's motion.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments?
Are there any questions from people in the community or visitors what we're talking about here?
Do you want to quickly explain?
Sure. Go ahead, Dr. Rocco.
That was nice.
Well, there's legislation currently in the State House to not only expand vouchers, increasing the income requirement or income limit to 170,000, but also the establishment of education savings accounts, which would allow people to put money aside and get a tax credit for their contribution, and then those funds could be used for virtual learning, homeschooling, and other purposes. And of course, anytime people are able to have a donation and then get a straight tax credit, it reduces the amount of money available to spread out for other public services.
And this is for the non-public schools, the private schools. So in
Yes.
other words, we can't do this for a public school, but just a special small group that can do this.
That is correct.
That
Thank you for the explanation.
seems just a violation of our Constitution and what we're all about and what we stand for, which is fair and appropriate public education, or free.
And for the benefit of the public, our board did author a letter to the General Assembly in the last few days talking about several of these issues. That's been submitted to our local newspapers for printing as well. And after they sign the letter to the General Assembly this evening, we'll post a copy of that on our website. But it is opposing many of these things that do not appear to be in the best interest of the state of Indiana moving forward.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Begley up. He has a couple of special student recognitions. During this school year, we have not had our board members come down to shake hands and congratulate you, but they will do so from the stage. I'll turn it over to Mr. Begley for some words about these great accomplishments.
The first recognition is for our junior all-state.
You need to be in both those mics.
I'll turn my back to everyone. So, I don't see Landon Rue here, or his mom, or I don't think Max Peller. So, with no objection, I would recommend that we move that to the next board meeting.
Sure, absolutely.
So the next presentation, I'd like to bring up Mr. Kevin Feldman and Lieutenant Josh, is it Beller? Boyer, if they'd come up, and then we have our student council here. Over the last few years, I always like to say Lake Central doesn't do anything small, and we as a school community have teamed up with the Salvation Army, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk a little bit about it, but we've worked together in bringing a little bit of happiness to people during the holidays, and Kevin called me up, and he said he'd like to come and talk about it a little bit, so I'm going to turn it over to him, but this is something that I'm very proud of our student body and our school community have just done a great job in bringing people a little bit of a merrier holiday season.
Thank you, Mr. Begley. And thank you, school board. We appreciate you very, very much. All my kids have gone through Lake Central schools and have graduated from Lake Central High School, except my last one, Caleb, is a junior. And so you do a great job, and we appreciate it. I am Director of Development with the Salvation Army Lake County. We serve all of Lake County, north and south, out of 3 community centers. The Hammond-Munster Community Center serves all of this area south, all the way to Lowell. And we have the East Chicago Community Center, and we have the Gary Maryville Community Center as well. Pretty much they deliver all the same services with food pantries, and East Chicago has a feeding program, like a soup kitchen. We have children's programs, youth programs, and most important, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, is, and we've always done this, is we assist households who are having trouble paying their rent, paying their mortgage, paying their utility bills, in preventing homelessness. It's much easier to serve families before they become homeless than after. So we do whatever we can, negotiating payments with landlords and so on, NIPSCO, to keep them in their homes. We have seen a tremendous rise since COVID-19. It's amazing that places like St. John, where there's big, beautiful homes, that because there's an unusually high rate of single-parent households, most of them led by single mothers with children, and that statistic is, as of last year, before COVID-19, 41% of households with children in Lake County are single-parent households. That number has gone up quite a bit since COVID-19. And those single moms, many of them were employed in the service industries or the non-essential businesses, which those jobs have been lost. And so we're getting many, many more calls for help. One of the great things that Lake Central Lake Central High School has been a partner of ours in for many years is our Angel Tree program. Our Angel Tree program, which Lieutenant Boyer will tell you more about, is awesome. And we also just finished up a coat drive, a winter coat drive, which you might be familiar with as well, where hundreds and hundreds of winter coats were raised to help families in the area stay warm, and we need that more than ever right now. But I want to thank you. I want to thank Sean Bagley, and I want to thank particularly for the Angel Tree Drive, Rachel Calderon, one of the teachers who leads the group that helped coordinate all this. So my thanks to you, Captain Clark, who heads up Lake County, thanks you as well. And now I want to introduce you to Lieutenant Joshua Boyer. Lieutenant?
Thank you, Kevin. Well, there's not much more for me to say, but I'd love to talk to you about what happened during this holiday season. So if you'd look with me on this picture right here, this is what our main room looked like this season. It would have looked differently, but because of COVID, we had to do everything differently. We had to completely revamp the whole thing. So each paper on the floor there represents one family. We had an increase this year because of everything going on. We had 301 families come through our doors and tell us that they were in need or that they weren't going to be able to provide their children with toys this year. So overall, we were able to help. Let me see if this is going to work. Where do I point it? Oh, I turned it off. My bad. So with your help, thank you, student body and the board for being a part of it and just coming alongside of us. You were able to raise so many toys, collect them, bring them through our doors. We did not have the manpower to do as much as you did, and we're so thankful for that. And because of it, we were able to fill every single bag. So let me go back one so you can look at that floor and look at that. And that is a little over half. Yeah. We had so many families, we had to fill our chapel pews with them. So we were able to get over 727 children to have a bag of toys, not just one toy or two toys, but multiple good toys, from hoverboards and bikes to anything, you name it, all different ages. And so we just want to thank you, because it wouldn't have been possible without your help. I mean, we were there, of course, but you did so much. So thank you all. And I think and this is a special picture because this is what's left over, which will go into next year. A lot of that is from you as well. So we are so, so thankful. And we look forward to if you ever want to do it again with us.
Excellent. Good job.
You'd like to bring up your team And these are our student council, our student council leaders, and these young men and women were the ones that headed it up, the main effort of doing this. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Calderon.
Want to introduce yourselves and your offices? My name is Pia Lopez. I'm the president of Student Council.
I'm Jackson Novak. I'm the vice president of Student Council.
I'm Inez Caballas, and I'm the treasurer of the Student Council.
Good, very good.
Hi, Rachel Calderon, Student Council sponsor. We're just missing our secretary, Kate Malish. Thank you guys for this opportunity. It's my first year at LC as well as my first year in charge of Student Council, and we could say it was a hard year. But they really stepped up to the plate and did an amazing job. You guys did an awesome job for the circumstances, and you were able to raise so much for such a good cause, and we're all really proud of you.
Great job.
I just wanted to present them on behalf of the board, and it reads, exceptional effort with the Salvation Army to bring significant aid and comfort to the Lake County community. I wanted to present this to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How nice, how nice. Are they going to introduce parents?
Go ahead.
Do you,
This is something that we've done for several years, and it's been bigger every year. We look very much forward to each year, and we'll continue to do this for many years to come. Thank you.
just,
Dr. Malco would like to say something.
oh, do you have parents to introduce? Children?
Whose parents are in
Students?
here? Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you, Janice. That's good.
Who'd you bring with you?
All right, okay, okay. Could I also ask, could I also ask Rachel Calderon, did you go to Bebich school?
I didn't. I student taught here, but I didn't go here.
Okay, because your name is so familiar, but boy, next year, I know a lot of us donate to Salvation Army because we love what it's all about and its whole purpose. So maybe if we could get included in this next year, I mean, I would love to donate and help your cause. So if you would remember to notify the board members so we can be a part of it, that'd be great. All right, thank you.
So we're going to continue with our meeting, but if you guys want to stay, you can, but if not, you're free to leave.
You don't have to stay.
don't have to stay.
Madam President, may I make a quick comment?
Sure.
I'd like to make a personal comment to
Wait,
Lieutenant.
1 second.
Hold on. Lieutenant, I like your uniform, and I did notice an exceedingly bright spit shine on your shoes.
Yes, yes,
Good job.
yes.
Thank you.
Did you catch the gentleman's name that was, did you catch the older gentleman's name? Do you know
He
his name?
mentioned it, and I forgot.
Did you catch the gentleman's name, the older gentleman that spoke first? You didn't
I
catch
thought he said Kevin.
Mr.
I'm
Bagley,
not sure of
what
that.
was that gentleman's name? Kevin Feldman. Feldman.
Kevin what?
Kevin Feldman.
Feldman. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. My next agenda item is to seek board approval for the school board policies that we reviewed at our work session on January 19th. In lieu of doing them individually, I seek board approval for items A through G in their entirety.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. My next item is to give the board a legislative update. I have too many papers tonight. And so last week, we had a chance to sit in on the ISBA Legislative Action Day. And of course, you know, the items that catch my attention, as always, are those that are tied to funding of public education in Indiana. And I'll begin my comments by saying I hope our General Assembly can, in the future, at some point, differentiate between the total K-12 education pie and the public K-12 education pie. Because as they tell our residents in Indiana that the K-12 pie is going up by X percent, it matters to people like us how that money is being differentiated. In other words, who's it going to? And in the current session, House Bill 1005, Senate Bills 412 and 413 are all very high priorities for Indiana Republicans, but their priority is to give more parental choice in terms of more financial support for people who choose non-traditional public schools. These bills not only increase the income level to a point where vouchers will be universal, but they also reintroduce tax credits for families choosing private school options, something I mentioned earlier. There also, continues to exist the fact that private schools don't have to accept every child, and in fact, they reject children quite frequently for some stated reasons, and sometimes for reasons we don't know about or are not stated. We had panels from leaders of House Education and House Ways and Means, as well as some key senators, and they made it very clear that their objective is to continue down the path that we're heading in terms of giving more financial support to people who choose private schools. And the Speaker of the House, Todd Houston, said, we're a choice state, and we're going to continue to expand the way we allow parents to choose where to send their children. And so, superintendents in our area have long said, we understand that we need to be held accountable for how we spend our money, but how is it that more and more dollars are going into other school choice options with no accountability measures? And so, as Dr. Malco alluded to earlier in the meeting, we will be meeting with a couple of our local representatives on Friday, and we'll share these concerns among others. But what jumped off the screen at me on the Legislative Action Day was that whether we get 1 or 2% in the first year, a good portion of that 1% is going to go into the choice program and not into traditional public schools. This is disturbing to me and our office for the main reason that the governor had a panel that put out a study regarding the teacher shortage, and that compared to our neighboring states, Indiana's pay is not up to snuff. And he indicated through his budget proposal that he'd like to address this by shoring up teacher salaries in Indiana. But the current plan of the General Assembly isn't working in tandem with the governor's goals. So we need to continue to do what we can to advocate for the system that we believe in and that we know is successful and that we know that offers opportunities for all children. And so you have some talking points before you. I've given you some other things through email regarding things we can talk about on Friday. That is posted, the meeting time and location in the K-Trap Room Friday at 11 is posted on our website. So it is open to the public. However, I want to remind everybody that all of our public meetings does not mean that the public gets to participate anytime they want. It really is an opportunity that we agreed upon with our elected officials that we would be talking to them and that any observers would be observers and not participating in that discussion. So that's my legislative update for right now. We'll continue to follow the session. The bills are being passed across the hallway as they speak. So the House budget is over on the Senate side effectively now, and we'll see what kind of amendments they make. And then, of course, it comes back to a joint group to iron out their differences. But we're hoping that through our efforts and through our organizational efforts to lobby and try to minimize the amount that's being siphoned out of public education into private education. I'd pause for any questions about that topic before I give a music update.
I have a question. I was reading some material today, and it talked about February 3rd being the date when the budget has to have its final third reading in the Senate, and I believe in the House. And then March 3rd is the date when the other, when it goes to the other chamber, and it has to have its third reading by the March 3rd date. And then I think a vote has to be taken by, the 14th?
That may have been in the short session. In this session, just this past Monday, the House approved their budget. So the Senate would have just gotten it yesterday.
Well, and I knew that they had anticipated this was going to be a much longer session because of the census information not being available. So that's why I was going to ask you, is everything's kind of elongated this year, right, with the dates?
Yeah, so the Senate just got their hands on the proposal from the House, and they have ideas of their own that may be a new item, and they may try to modify what the House's proposal is. Of course, the House's proposal is significantly modified from the governor's proposal, which is generally the baseline where they start.
Yeah, all I will add is, all this is all. As with any budget, it comes down to funding and how much revenue is they're going to be. So right now, the General Assembly is doing this work based on the revenue forecast that was in December. But really, what they're really going to base it on is the revenue forecast in the middle of April. So all this back and forth are just ideas. The final budget bill won't be passed, or it won't be passed until the end of April. So we have this time in order to work on it, but they won't do. It's going back and forth, as Dr. Vrocko explained, but it won't be until the end of April. It'll be one of the last things in the session that are done. That is done. Statutorily, they have to have it done by the end of April, and it will.
What are you hearing from your organization, IASBO, about all of this?
Very similar. We can go into a little more details, but from my position, if you would have asked me 3 months ago or prior to December, I would have said it's going to be flatlined, probably even cut. So I know it's small, but when the House budget had a 1 and then a 2.5% increase, I understand that, yes, some of that money, a good percentage of it, is looking to go toward the areas that Dr. Vrocko talked about. But at least I see that there's something, and it's not a total cut. But they're only as good as the revenue they have coming in, just like your household, just like us here at Lake Central. So I take it with a grain of salt, but it's important for us to continue with this education to the representatives, so when it comes to that time, they can use these 2 months in order to dictate what's best for Indiana as a whole.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Okay, and we can have that further discussion on Friday, after we get a chance to visit with Mr. Slager and hopefully Mr. Niemeyer. So my next item is just to give the board an update on some meetings I've been having with the marching band and music people. I've met with secondary music teachers on the January the 6th, January 20th, February 3rd, and today, just to discuss primarily the idea of can we bring private lessons outside of the school day back into the buildings. Our band directors unanimously believe that our kids were stronger performers when it was easier for them to have private lessons available to them. When we went through the budget crisis several years ago, one of the things we tried to do was not have people using the facility totally free of charge. And so we're trying to look at a way to do this as under the guise of co-curricular with a lot more transparency and organization this time. So to give the backstory without getting into all the gory details, we were a little bit loose in how people were coming and going in those days with issuance of keys and other things. And so we have to have much tighter controls as we move forward to know who's here and when. So we intend to use an electronic scheduling system that will allow us to keep track of what's going on. But nonetheless, in addition to this private lesson idea, the band people asked if we would consider bringing back a percussion expert to support band students at middle school and high school. So that's something we've been discussing. We've also discussed for our choir people the possibility of having a part-time pianist to accompany the choir, especially leading up to their performances, so that the director can focus on the vocals that are coming from various sections of their choirs. And, you know, for me as superintendent, the thing is, we're always interested in having strong participation in our performing arts programs. And so we want to consider all these things, but I also want the board to know that I've told the group at each meeting, I believe, but certainly on multiple occasions, that given the state of the Indiana General Assembly's proposed budget, we may not have an abundance of extra money to be adding things. So we need to be very careful and prudent in what we do. And so, but I am willing to hear those sort of wish list items that people think could make our program stronger. Because like all of our programs, we like to be really good. And so what are those things that we could do to make ourselves stronger? And, you know, the other thing that we've gotten into pretty heavily is there a way for us to free up our high school directors at least, you know, a couple times a year, maybe once a quarter, to get into those schools and familiarize the students who are going to be coming to the high school, who the high school directors are, so that they understand, you know, who the people are and they get a familiarity. Because, as I've said to this body before, we have a lot of students who participate, you know, in middle school, and then they start falling by the wayside. And so if we can get more of them to transition into freshman year and participate, hopefully they'll stay and our music programs can get even stronger. So our committee plans to continue to meet every 2 weeks, and I do hope to bring some type of final summary, maybe a proposal for some additional resources sometime in April at one of our meetings.
Now, when you say secondary music teachers, that's the middle school and the high school?
Middle school and high school choir and band.
Okay. And you're feeling a cohesive, collaborative spirit in the room?
Well, you know, I haven't met with them prior to January, but I would say that, yeah, I think people are interested in helping each other, and I think they're interested in having higher levels of performance. I'm interested in that, but I'm more interested in higher levels of participation. So I think they can go hand in hand if we do it well.
Good. Nice update, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to our Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. We're recommending that the following personnel be approved.
We have a motion?
Motion? Yeah.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We are pleased tonight to bring you our middle school athletic directors. We have Lisa and Lori with us. I think Bill is still working with a group of athletes. And the program or their slideshow is in your packet.
Oh. She meant it was in her laptop.
All right, I'm Lisa Huguenard. I'm from Grimmer Middle School.
Lori Smith from Clark Middle School.
And Bill was unable to be with us tonight. He has further engagements with volleyball. All right, here's our slide about the fall athletic sports participants and the numbers that we've had. They've been down all around, not just with us, but also with our conference. Numbers have been extremely low for all sports this year. Want to add anything? Fall coaches list of who coached for us.
Just
just our records. Obviously this year with teams having to quarantine and trying to reschedule and schedule and reschedule again. I know you guys have felt it at the high school level too. We've tried to get as many games as we could in. So just here's Clark's conference. We didn't have any tournaments at the end. A lot of our opposing teams didn't feel comfortable with having so many people at their in their facilities. So we forewent having any conference tournaments at the end of each season. So those would just be our records.
And here's Grimmer's. Like she said, there was a lot of quarantine, especially in the fall, going on. So numbers are going to look different per school, depending on who was quarantined when. Because like my volleyball was quarantined the last 2 weeks, and they didn't play the last 2 weeks of games.
I think I rescheduled with Lisa like 3 times.
Yeah. All right, there's Kaler's. Finances, this is yours.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have our gates. Our gates were definitely down, of course, because of COVID. We had limited concessions because of COVID, so obviously the amount coming in and the amount coming out were a little more equal this year than gains.
And there's mine. I'm in the negative. Yeah, we didn't even run concessions at Grimmer this year because with the amount of games we had, it wasn't worth opening up the window. We did have water and a vending machine, and we did have vending machine food available for spectators, but that was about it for that. And, oh, we must have missed Kaler. Kaler's on there? I don't know what happened to Kaler's. Sorry about that. Purchases. We all did this with Dave Rafalski. He's the guy that lines up our officials for us, especially for basketball season. So we all pay him $125. We all had a conference fee too of $75. We all had the yearly family ID fee. And then I got a couple extra things that we needed to get ready for winter sports with coaches' keys and wrestling and scorebooks. And this is Kaler's, if you can understand what he did. Oh, maybe it was yours. Oh, okay. And this looks like Clark. This is Clark's pictures, team pictures for this year. And Grimmer's team pictures for this year. Yeah, you can see just how small we all are. This looks like Kaler's cross country. Kaler usually has 100 girls, 100 boys, if that gives you any idea. And they're pretty small. Volleyball, and look, football is the bottom. Again, their football team was pretty small too this year. They're typically bigger. Any questions for us?
So what do you anticipate with spring sports? What do you think?
I think, well, girls basketball is about ready to wrap up. Luckily, girls basketball is about ready to wrap up now. And really, I haven't had a quarantine. I don't think you guys have or Kaler has. We've been very fortunate there. Now with track, I think our numbers are going to be low. I really do. Again, just because of that's been the thing all year. We are planning on not having the conference track meet in Lowell again this year. It's on our table right now that it's not going to happen, just because there's going to be too many people at that. We have to sit there and figure out how things are going to run too, because right now I got 2 boys track coaches are thinking they're not going to do it. They need to give me an idea if they're going to do it or not, because they're worried about how things are getting cleaned. I got one that's like he's not putting his kids into sports right now, and his thought is, why am I coaching? We're on all these kids. So, I mean, that's what I'm kind of dealing with coach-wise. And I just really feel like the numbers are going to be low for both boys and girls again, just for how low the numbers for cross-country were.
Yeah, and I think too, just because of the, middle schools that year, if the kids haven't been participating and they want to try it, that's what middle school's about, is those kids getting out there and having that experience. And I think parents are more hesitant right now with exposing their kids to something new. And, everybody's opinion matters, and that's absolutely fine. So hopefully it doesn't hurt us in the future. I know that's something that the high school coaches have kind of been, chirping in our ear, worrying about, their numbers for the future. But like anything, I think we'll bounce back, and if anything, it'll make us a little bit stronger. So.
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment. All 3 middle schools, my compliments are out there to you for dealing with what's going on. I'm sure you've had many roadblocks during the season, et cetera, et cetera. But seriously, kudos to all your efforts, and thank you.
I agree with you, Howard. Very well said, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Just to let you know, Teresa is now conducting the kindergarten family night tonight and tomorrow night. So Sarah is going to take over her part, and she will fill you on in kindergarten enrollment at your next meeting.
All right. Mrs. Castaneda, on behalf of Teresa Shones, Director of Primary Education.
Yes, Teresa's only item this evening is to seek your approval for the professional leave request, the amended version you received tonight.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Dr. Malkow. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, motion passes.
Do you know much about the Foundations of Fractions with Graham Fletcher? Do you know anything about that program?
I know that our elementary math coach actually already took the course and said it was fabulous, which is why you see so many other people participating in it. I know that it was well received by her, and she thought that having many of our 4th grade teachers, which is who you see on there, view it as well would be helpful. We are flush with Title II professional development dollars right now because nobody can go anywhere, so I know it looks a little expensive, but it definitely is worth the money.
That's right. Because last year you had started the partnership with Purdue Cal and Diana. Oh, shoot.
Underwood. Dr.
Yeah,
Underwood?
Underwood. So we're not doing that anymore then?
Not during this school year.
Pardon me?
Not during this school year.
Okay.
The Graham Fletcher one is self-paced. They can view it when they can find time, which frees us from having to find that many subs, which has been an issue all
Right.
year long. So we
Yes.
can give them release time to view it, but we can also kind of put them in smaller groups, which is something with Dr. Underwood that wouldn't have worked out.
I've never heard of Graham Fletcher. That's why I was curious.
If
what
you have
this
a
was all
chance to
about.
look him up, he's fabulous.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. I will do that.
And then as Terry said, Teresa will update you on kindergarten enrollment at the next meeting.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
moved? Do we need a motion?
No.
No, okay.
All right, so we'll go right into the Director of Secondary Education. Ms.
Thank you.
Castaneda.
For my first item, I'm seeking your approval for the professional leave requests.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, so moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Malkow. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes.
Thank you. For my second item, I am seeking your approval for the field trip requests.
Do we have a motion for field trip requests?
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Do we approve?
Call for a
Sorry, I
vote.
lost my train of thought. Any opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. And then for my final item, I'm actually going to bring up Mr. Bagley to talk about some new high school course offerings this next year.
Thank you, Ms. Castaneda. Good evening again. Each year, as we get ready for the follow-on school year, looking for 21-22, we look to see what courses we'd like to add and offer. So at your workstation, I've put up the different recommendations that we have that we'll like to offer next year. And these 3 courses, Principles of Computer and Informatics, the Principles of Business and Principles of Entrepreneurship, are classes that are going to help fulfill and are better aligned with the new pathway that is entitled the Next Level Programs of Study, NLPS. So with the graduation pathways, that is going to be the requirement for graduation for 2023 and beyond, we want to set conditions so we have these classes in place so the students can seamlessly move into these as one of the possible avenues for graduation. We're going to brief you, Mrs. Castaneda and I, in greater detail on March 15th, specifically on Grad Pathways. But just quickly, the three parts are the high school graduate, the diploma, and that's the credits. The second part is the work-based, project-based, or service-based learning. And the third is post-secondary skills. And that's where these fit in. They would fit in for a student to become a CTE concentrator. It can be one of the ways that they can demonstrate post-secondary readiness. So these are courses that we'll be adding on to the course selection guide, and both getting our teachers ready to teach them and getting materials for the classes. Pending any questions?
I do have a question. Okay, so you currently offer Introduction to Business.
Yes.
And you currently offer Entrepreneurship and the New Ventures Capstone. So are these classes somewhat of a subset of those classes?
At this
or-
point, they're not replacing them, but that could happen down the road.
That's a lot of, because you have Introduction to Business, then Principles of Business, then Principles in Entrepreneurship, and then Entrepreneurship. I mean, it seems kind of.
Discuss that, you know.
What they're doing with the CTE courses is they are migrating them to new ones, and all schools will have to shift over to the new ones, and the concentrators that Mr. Bailey referenced by not this coming next school year, but the year after that. And so what, in talking with the Hammond Area Career Center, which also supports senior CTE programs, they said take a look at maybe some of your business courses and ones that are easier to start to transition in this year, and then look at maybe the shift next year. So like Mr. Bailey said, we probably will have changes to some of those courses that seem similar, but these are the first ones that we identified that were easy to switch to, and then we're going to kind of update the shift.
Okay, and then, I mean, and I know the classes are what they are, but has there ever been any discussion about, so people that want to go into business, business math, teaching them about supply and demand and those kind of things, and I know that's like a big, whole different curricular beast. But I mean, for somebody who's going to go into business, a lot of people, they shy away from the math. And so they had Algebra 2 here, and, they hated Algebra 2, and then, they hate math forever. Not that I know anyone like that, of course, but, do they have any classes on the books that are more like consumer math, and math for people in business, or do those not really exist within the CT classes that they have?
I'm sorry, can you go to the microphone? I'm sorry. Thank you.
So we have the personal financial responsibility course. We also have our economics course, which is based within the social studies domain, but we don't have a business math course at this time.
Okay.
I think as we start looking at what the governor is trying to do with this, that is something that we could incorporate because it would tie in perhaps well with this, but then that creates another elective, and then also deciding if we want someone from the math department or the business department to teach it. So we'd have to look into that, but it's not anything we're unopposed to. I think.
And it is an economics question of, limited resources and competing interests. Another example that we used to offer was the finite math. And that was a great course to offer because that's really the weed out class at Kelly down at IU. And I would love to offer that class. However, I've called IU and I've called Purdue and I've asked, if we have a student taking finite, will that count towards pre-calc or trig? And they say no. So then it's an additional class. Now, if they said, yeah, we'll take algebra, geometry, algebra 2 finite, then it's an easy substitute. Because like in English is a perfect example. They can take composition and they can take world lit, or they can take composition and advanced speech. They'll take either one of those as their English. And you run out of those resources of, are we going to have geometry classes and algebra classes with those numbers going up by taking a math teacher out and offering a class like finite or a business math. So it's always something we're balancing, and we're always looking when we start these classes, are they sustainable? And do I have enough students in there that it's, that we can keep the class going with a good amount? And I'd certainly like to see, with the computer classes, to see those grow, with the programming classes. And I'm hoping this informatics class will do it, because I think we're a little bit outdated, because we're doing the visual basic, and I think that's a little bit outdated, and this is more of a all-encompassing and learning the logic and the flow charts, and then we can get into some more of the more current languages like the C++ and the Python.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
But circling back to your original point, I do think that the business math lends itself to the career pathways that they're talking about, helping them discover that while they're here in high school. So, I mean, it is something we can do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. I do have Mrs. Gramala.
She's not able to be here tonight.
Okay. Just nobody was going to talk for her. Okay, very good. Thank you. So we'll go right to Mr. James, Director of Business Services.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. My first item is to seek your approval for the donations that were included in your board packet.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
second by Dr. Malco. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. My second item is to seek your approval for the food to school purchasing agreement for our food service department. 2 years ago, we joined the food to school purchasing cooperative with many other school districts in the state, and there's a list of all of them in your board packet. So the interlocal agreement that we have as part of the co-op, first, the membership just continues unless we tell them otherwise. And the contracts that were awarded for this year's grocery, bread, and milk contracts, there were clauses in the contract to have those same vendors roll for an additional year. So I seek your approval for, one, to us to stay within the co-op, and two, to retain the grocery contract with HPS, the milk contract with Pleasant View Dairy, and the bread contract with Alpha Bakery for the 21-22 school year.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same, yeah, any opposed, same sign? Motion passes.
Thank you. My next item, I just want to give the board an update on our textbook rental fund. I have updated the spreadsheet I put in your board packet with a handout that is at your desk or at your seat. We've been talking to the board here for multiple years about the deficit that's in our textbook rental fund. These are for people just not paying their textbook rental fees. We are in a situation here of where our proximity is that, as we talked about, we have many people who move to our school district from Illinois, and in Illinois they don't charge textbook rental. So when they get the invoices and bills from us, they don't feel like they have to pay it. So over the last few years, we've tried to really implement things to help with that. One, education. Two, we send statements out monthly to families so they can see it. Every time they log into their student's account in Skyward, it says big on top how much you owe. Our food service department sends out regular notifications to families who are struggling, hoping that they could apply for the free and reduced, and then that way not only do they get free lunch and breakfast, but then also the free textbooks. So trying to educate our community has been big. So if you look on the top left, I kind of show what the deficit of the fund has been over the last 5 years. We were making strides, and then this year we're about another $100,000 in the hole. So right now, at the end of January, we're $873,000 in the hole. Again, we've been trying. The column on the right shows how much revenue has come in each of those respective years. Our enrollment has been pretty steady, so I didn't feel like we needed to adjust for that. I feel that with the things that we've done, we were collecting about $2 million a year, and then we jumped to 2.3, which helped, so it reduced the deficit. And then for the past 12 months, we're down $250,000 again. Now, of course, the last 12 months, a lot going on. Pandemic, people losing, not working, has less income coming in. So I'm not surprised at all that the revenue that we've received has decreased. That being said, we're really hoping and encouraging people who are having some financial struggles to fill out those free and reduced applications. So here in the fall, when you're aware that we are now offering free lunch and breakfast to all students, part of the federal program, which is great. You know, kids are getting free breakfast, even the ones who would not normally qualify for that. The problem with that is that if I'm having a family that is struggling, they may say, oh, well, now I don't have to do that application because I'm automatically getting free breakfast and lunch. But you still need to do the application in order to get the free textbooks. And so your textbook fees aren't waived unless you fill out and get approved with the application. So when this program for the lunch was rolled out by our food service department, it was made very clear in the literature that was sent out and in emails that you please still need to. And our food service does a good service as well of anyone who's been prior free and reduced. They send notices to them about trying to make sure that they reapply, because it just doesn't roll from year to year. So we're working at it, but we definitely know that it's been an issue. There in the middle on the left-hand side, I've kind of showed how much was unpaid at the end of each respective school year. It's generally hovering around, $300,000. Now, this is not people who were free and reduced. These are regular full-pay people who have just not paid or had still some outstanding balances. If we go with 9,400 people, our free and reduced population is about 20%. That takes us down to about 7,500 full pays. So if you look here about how many accounts were still delinquent, it's about 20% of our population has still some sort of unpaid fees at the end of each respective school year. What we do is at the end of the year, we turn those over to our collection agency, and they pursue those as best as they can. And you can see on the right then how much of those outstanding bills are still out, owed from the prior years. It's about half the money from the last 5 years. We're still owed, over $700,000, and that would go a long way to feeding our deficit there in the top left. So I'm just bringing this up to the board again, just to keep you aware. It is becoming more of an issue because, the Board of Accounts has written us up in our audit report every time for this. And I tried to have a clean audit report, and this is something that really bothers me because we fixed everything else, and then we still have this. And then recently, when we've had to do financial reviews for S&P and Moody's, it's one of the things that jumps out when you've got almost $1 million fund that's in the hole that much. So they've asked us over the years, okay, what are you doing to fix this? What are you doing to help? And we tried I've told them about the things that I've told to you, but how long is that going to stretch? It can't be a 10-year program. We've got to make strides. So unfortunately, the collection agencies, as you can see, they're only, I'd say, moderately successful in doing it because they send letters, but we don't collect. Let me rephrase this. Parents are not required to give us their Social Security number, so for the collection agencies, it's more difficult for them to file things in the court because we don't know where people work. It's hard to garnish wages. So we legally can't require people to submit that information to us. So it is an uphill battle. We're always looking for ideas, talking to other school corporations of what they're doing. We have always felt from day one we never want to take away things from kids because of, it's really the parents' responsibility to do that. But, but sometimes if there's no meat in the game, then parents are a little more lax. One idea we thought about is, like at the high school, is parking fees, parking permits. Every student has the ability to ride the bus. But we have the idea of what if you couldn't get a parking pass if you had a delinquent textbook fee? I would need the board, I'm not asking for the board to bless that, but given the fact that everyone has the ability to take a bus, that is not part of FAPE. That is an extra privilege that comes on. We've thrown out the idea of dance tickets and other things. The board's been hesitant about that in the past as well, and we understand that, but we're really looking for ideas. And we feel that if we can't, if there's no meat in it, it's really been a problem. One of the things that has come up recently is a program, it's called TREX, and this is where we can turn delinquent accounts over and, in essence, I'm going to say garnish, but we can intercept people's tax returns and their tax refunds in order to get money owed to us. So we're still looking into it. It is intriguing, but of course everything comes with a cost. Sure. And so in order to participate in this program, if we turned our stuff over to the state in order to try to go this route, then we wouldn't be able to send those accounts to the collection agency to pursue them. So now you're dealing which hand's going to be better. Through this TREX program, the clearinghouse who does it, they add a $20 fee onto every account, and then the Department of Revenue adds a 15% fee on top of that to the person in debt. So, for example, if a parent owed $300 for a book bill, well, then you're going to add 15% to that, and then another $20. The next thing you know, their $300 bill just came $365. Of course, if someone pays, we'll say, for example, $200, they're going to get their money first, and then it comes to us. So I don't know how successful it will be. I've talked to some of my peers in the area. I know of some who are looking at maybe doing this program. I really don't, I'm a little more uncomfortable about charging that excess fee to parents because obviously they're having problems paying it in the first place. So adding a 15%, which could end up being 20, 25% on top of it, I don't know how successful we're going to be to do that. But at some point, I don't want to say I don't care, but at some point, we got to do what's right for the corporation. And we got to fill the hole somehow. And if we can't come up with another way with other measures, we're going to eventually have to take money that's been earmarked for classrooms and use that to fill the hole. And that's what I don't want to do. But we got to figure out something.
Is there a way on the front end, so like in July, to say, you could send it to everybody, so you're not pointing, hey, we've noticed some people have had problems paying their textbook fees and so on and so forth. We don't want anyone to be in the hole for this. There's a way around this. If you submit for this, you would get the free and reduced lunch and it would cover the textbook funds, like catching people early on in like making it less shameful.
Sure. Well,
people feel pride and stuff. They don't want that kind of thing. And if
correct.
you don't want the free and reduced lunch, they don't have to take the free and reduced lunch, but it could still cover the textbook fees and nobody would know, like to kind of put that out
sure.
to everybody, like in a,
yeah. We try to educate through the registration process in July, as you said, just like when people are registering their kids, there's a screen where it talks about what their fees are going to be. They have to accept, yes, I agree to pay, but then there's also a link right there that takes them directly to the lunch application if they choose to. What's nice is because as technology is advanced, the application's all done online, so people don't know. And the student who's getting the free or reduced lunch is getting the exact same meal as the full pay student. They're not looked at as an outlier. There's no special red plate. It's the same meal. And nowadays with how everyone just has their swipe card, no one knows any different. So the stigmatism has gone away. But as we've explained, we live in a community of pride, and there's people who, I'm not saying unfortunate, but sometimes they just don't want to do that because they're really proud and determined that they want to be able to make that payment and they don't want to do that. And I feel for them, and those are the people that we really would say, hey, you know what, but there's these federal programs out here for you to help you. Maybe this is the bridge to get you to what can help you, and the following, don't apply the following year, but let's try to educate them and do better. So I'm not asking for any action from the board about enrolling in the TREX program or parking ticket, permits, but I just for you to like think it over, because at some point, maybe in the near future, I'll just try to get some feedback, from you on.
Do you remember years ago, there was some discussion at the state level about them? They probably didn't talk about TBR, but we did, thinking the state should pick up some of that cost for the non-payment. Is that something that you've discussed, your organization's discussed with legislators?
Well, as with anything, that would take funding. And so for them they'd have to carve out money out of the state budget in order to do that. And and I'm guessing, if I was in the General Assembly, if someone is just choosing not to pay because they don't qualify for free and reduced, then why should the General Assembly have to kick in and pay for someone else who's choosing not to? So I can see it being a touchy issue. For people who are free and reduced, we do get made whole on that, so we're good there. We have even though it's 20%, that is still on a lower end of the free and reduced population. So if you had a higher percentage, if your district was more impoverished, then there's a more chance that you're getting 100%. You're going to get 100% of that revenue. So, there's lots of things to go along with, being in an impoverished community, and we definitely feel for those. But this is one of the areas where we struggle a little bit because we don't get 100% of those dollars.
Well, so if we struggle like this, you can imagine what some of the high poverty schools have. So
Yeah.
at what point does our government step in and say, hey, we've got a problem here? I mean, I don't know, and I'm not saying that they will. But
Well, it's a catch-22 because Illinois, as I said, they don't have textbook rental, but instead their property taxes are twice as much. So people are gonna pay for textbooks cost. They cost the school district. There's textbook adoption every so often. Someone has to pay for that, and either the government would fund it completely, but where are they going to get the dollars? It would have to be raised through probably taxes. Well, the problem is now we can't run it through property taxes because everyone's already at the tax cap. So you can't raise that, so that avenue is pretty much.
Well, actually, if they wouldn't siphon the money off of public ed, we would have the money.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Hey, Rob, if there's something I could ask you about for next time, are you done with that report?
I am done with that report unless anyone else has any questions.
What? No. On that school day that we had with Terry Spradlin about the legislative, he directed us to all sorts of numbers and documents. This is called the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER 2, Planning Allocations.
Yep.
So in April of last year, 609,000.
That's CARES money. If you hear the term CARES, the CARES grant, the CARES money, that's what that is.
Okay. So then it's talking about planning allocation. It's in bold and there's no dates, but it's ESSER 2.
Yep.
At 2,162,000. What's
So that's what we were allocated at the end of December through the federal ESSER package. Most school districts were getting about 3 to 4 times as much as they did with the first allocation. That's money that we've used for PPE and all the sanitizers and plexiglass and cleaning things that Bill and his cleaning staff have utilized. So we have not spent all of the original $600,000. We have 2 years to spend that. This next round, we have an additional year, so it's really like a 2 or 3 year program. That allocation literally was just released within the last 2 or 3 weeks. We're kind of taking it a little at a time to see how it's going to be. Our biggest fear last year was we never knew how the pandemic was going to effect was going to be. So what if that meant federal programs were going to get trimmed? If hypothetically, Title I, Title III programs that are servicing our kids, well, what if those programs got cut? We don't want to take those services away from the kids that are servicing. So we felt we need to hold on to this money in case we want to still maintain these aides and reading specialists so services wouldn't be disrupted to kids. we'll see how that plays out. We also know that we've talked about the instructional learning gap this year, that many students have fallen behind as compared to a normal year. And many districts are talking about having a little more extensive summer school program. So we would be able to use those dollars to have either more staff, pay them for a longer day. That is a curriculum decision
So that
here.
money could be used for that.
But it's things that are related to the pandemic. We can't take that and dump it into teacher salaries. We can't take it and use it to put on a new roof. It is things that have been directly affected by the pandemic.
Could it cover the cost of the substitute teachers that we've had during the pandemic?
Yeah, except we haven't had as many because most teachers, when they're out, they're still teaching from home, and they're not.
I
we
mean,
don't have.
It was just a question.
Well, we have the subs in the classrooms, yes, but so I misspoke there, but.
So it could assist with reteaching if somebody needs to have some material retaught. It could pay for a.
It could help pay for an extended summer program in one way or another. I'd also like to remind you that we added 10 custodians this year because of the pandemic, and that's costing us $500,000 per year. So that's nothing to do with instruction. That's nothing to do with sanitizer, nothing. We're taking a big hit there for that. I can argue, well, we can use all this money to cover their costs, but the kids and the instructionals got to come first, and that's what we're all about. So we have not sat down and talked about this 2.1 yet, because again, it just came out 3 weeks ago, and we got 3 years to spend it. So let's take an evaluation of what our student needs are for this year, talking with Sarah and Teresa and Becky, talking with their teachers, what is going to be the best for the kids that we have right here.
Well, I have an idea. You know how a lot of preschools were not able to function because of COVID? They closed down. So then our students didn't have the experience of the preschool. So there we go. An intervention program for those little ones, yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I'm saying that because you know how I am about needing interventions for our little ones coming into school. So.
They're all ideas. They're all ideas. So. Any more questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I think that's a good use of money.
No public questions. So with that, we'll move on to our board comments and considerations. Future agenda items. Dr. Medlin.
I don't know how we're going to go about this, whether it's a work session, executive session. I don't know how it fits in, but I do think we need to talk about a strategic plan possibility for the future. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Mackel.
I would agree. That would be nice. Sean, since you're here, Mr. Begley, is it possible to have, and this is just me thinking, Kendall Smith and his students come and tell us more about their antibody research, as opposed to waiting till the very end, but maybe kind of have them keep us updated? What did you say?
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll talk with you offline. Yeah, okay, all right. And then the other is, I've had a couple of people ask, and I know it's been a really funky year, but what are the plans for the Veteran Memorial down there in the front lobby?
We have hope on
I can't hear him.
He says that there's a quote on the granite.
Okay,
They're looking at the bronze plaques. What the inscription will be. Hoping to get up on by Memorial Day.
Oh.
Hoping to get it up by Memorial
end of
Day.
May, that'd be nice. All right, thank you, Sean, appreciate it.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes, just a short comment, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, Sean. But we have a singular honor at Lake Central. There's a young lady who happens to be of African-American heritage that was recently achieved the designation of an Eagle Scout, while hundreds throughout the country happen to be female. She is one of 21 African-American students to achieve that honor. And I'm sure some recognition will come forth at a later date. Kendall Jackson, correct, a senior. Right. I was sure that would be forthcoming at a later date, sure.
Absolutely.
That's all at this point.
Thank you, and it's the kudos to the high school today, because on social media, I wanted to say congratulations to Claire Lavoie and Anish Potticher. Did I say that right? I'm sorry. They became National Merit Scholarship finalists, and it also indicated that these students scored in the top 1% of the 1.5 million students who took the PSAT, NMSQT in 2019, and are now part of the less than 1% to move on to be finalists. So congratulations to them. Yay. And it also said that there were 6 students who scored around the top 3% of those 1.5 million. So.
So you saw that on the Lake
It was
Central?
social media. The Lake Central High School. It was tweeted as well as on Facebook.
So when
And
you put
I don't
that
know
on
what
the front page, the website? Pictures and information? Because we're just trying to get information about these good things that are happening out to our community. I mean,
And whoever's been doing the Lake Central High School Facebook, I don't follow too much Twitter, but they've been doing a fabulous job on that. Who does it? Mrs. Reddick? Well, she's been doing a fabulous job, so
maybe
thank
I'm
you.
not on that. I'll have to check.
Facebook and Twitter. Safe travels and best of luck to all the athletes that'll be competing in the postseason and in-season competitions these coming weeks.
Yeah.
And good luck Friday at your work session with Mr. Slager.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all that I have. So with that, we'll move to Dr. Baracco, Board Calendar of Future Activities.
Yeah, just remind the board to check the calendars online for upcoming events. We are allowed to have spectators beyond just family members now. And I know that people have different comfort levels, whether they're going to attend other activities. But spring sports are on the way, and they're a lot easier to attend, I think, outdoors. So we'll be back here 2 weeks from this past Monday.
Thank you.
So that's
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr.
Second.
Medlin and a second by Mr. Marshall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.